Number 5. Uluru Rock. If you're heading down under for vacation this year, well, there's a certain object that remains very cursed there that people don't really recommend you tamper with. And it's huge. Uluru Rock. Yeah, this massive sandstone monolith in Australia was discovered on paper in 1873 by surveyor William Goss. He named the landmark Ayers Rock in honor of the then Chief Secretary of South Australia, Sir Henry Ayers. Known as such, of course, until 1993 when it was officially renamed to Uluru, honoring the title originally given to the Anangu First Nations peoples, to whom the site is sacred and, more importantly, home. This thing is strange. First off, this place is highly sacred, stumbled upon by the First Nations people of the northern Aussie area for who knows how long. This site has been known over the eons to have strange powers though, i.e. any tampering, stealing, defacing, or slandering the megalith is a sure way to test your luck against, well, the universe. This place shouldn't be messed with. One man stole a chunk of rock from the monument and experienced so much bad luck that he actually drove 3,000 kilometers to return it in person, in an attempt to rid himself of the karma he believed was attached to him. The chip was returned 40 years later. The largest piece of rock that was ever returned back to the site weighed more than 70 pounds. Yeah, this is serious stuff. First off, how the hell did you sneak that off the site? Like, did he just back his truck up to it like, yeah, just chip that big rock off, put it all in. He apparently wrote, "Dear Australia, I am so sorry I took this piece of Uluru. I wanted a piece of Australia to take home with me and this was the wrong thing to take. I hope Australia can forgive me and welcome me if I ever come back. Signed, an unwise traveler." Yeah, the reason they advise visitors not to take anything is the paranormal omens connected to said rock. Also, this is a giant rock we're looking at, like only a tenth of its mass you can see. It's like an iceberg, like underground. So before you experience any bad luck, illness, or karma beyond karma any day soon, I just collect seashells and skip this whole thing. No? Number 4. Tutankhamun's trumpets. The trumpets are a pair that were first found in the burial chamber of the 18th dynasty pharaoh, famously known as King Tut. One sterling silver and one bronze. They are considered to be the oldest operational trumpets in the world, and the only known surviving examples from ancient Egypt. The trumpets were found in 1922 by Howard Carter during the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb. Yeah, you know, the whole cursed tomb thing. The bronze trumpet was discovered in the tomb's antechamber in a large chest containing other military objects and walking sticks. The silver trumpet was found in the actual burial chamber. Both are engraved with decorative images of the gods. Similar looking trumpets feature in Egyptian wall paintings that are usually, but not always, but most associated with military and war. Silent for more than 3,000 years, the trumpets were played for a live audience of 150 million people through a BBC broadcast live in 1939. And then World War II happened, because apparently the curator of the Tutankhamun collection at the Egyptian Museum says whenever someone blows into it, a war occurs. The same thing happened in 1967 and the 1991 Gulf War when a student was doing research on Tutankhamun's collection and gave her a whirl. Yeah. The bronze trumpet was one of the artifacts stolen from the Egyptian Museum in Cairo during the Egyptian looting riots in 2011 and then, hilariously enough, returned weeks later. Yeah, apparently it's like really cursed, like haunted cursed. Guy didn't want it anymore. Shocker. Number 3, the Statue of Osiris. And speaking of ancient Egypt, we arrive yet again at something stolen. The Statue of Osiris. In 1971, during an excavation in Saqqara, Egyptologist Walter Bryan Emery found a small statue of the Egyptian god of death, Osiris. He and his assistant returned to the dig site's office in a nearby village as Emery took the statue of Osiris with him. Once at his house, Emery went to the bathroom to shower, and after moments, his assistant began to hear Emery screaming. He found him clutching the sink, clearly experiencing some kind of trauma. His assistant said that Emery stood there paralyzed. I grabbed him by the shoulders and dragged him onto the couch. Then I ran for the telephone. Emery was diagnosed with paralysis of the right side of his body and was unable to speak. He actually died the following day. Talk about curse of the pharaohs. It's been said that there was a possession of a Canadian woman who believed her home had also become haunted by said statue. The woman gave it to the Ontario Museum, which returned it home to Egypt. Have we seen this video of said statue moving on its own? Like, this is from a Manchester museum, and this thing is just moving on its own all day. Yeah, this god's pretty powerful, and this stuff needs to be respected, you know? And returned. Like, you can't just steal stuff and throw it up in a museum overseas. Especially the stuff that clearly says in hieroglyphics, do not remove this, you will be cursed. We're uncovering more and more buried Egypt every day. Just please be respectful and leave the stuff alone after discovering and documenting it. And whatever you do, don't play any more instruments, okay? Number 2. Ballista balls. Almost 2,000 stones were found during archaeological excavations in the Gamla Natural Reserve, of which the ancient Jewish city of Golan Heights used to sit. This is the site where the largest number of ballista stones from the early Roman period were found. Basically, these little sanded stones are perfectly smooth and perfectly designed for ancient machine gun slingshots. Oh yeah, and of course, by sling or hand. In 2020, a ballista ball in Israel was returned to the authorities 15 years after it was stolen. Apparently the balls were very cursed. Why was this particular ballista stone considered to be so cursed? Who knows? The artifact has been returned by an anonymous person under the name Moshe Manis. According to Moshe, the thief who stole the ballista stone stole it in 2005 when they were a teenager. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely not me. No, it's a friend of mine. Yeah, no, definitely not me. Him and his friends were touring a display of ballista stones at the Jerusalem Walls National Park in the city of David. These ballista stones were used by the Romans when they were fighting in Jerusalem in 70 AD as part of the first Jewish-Roman war, known also as the Great Jewish Revolt. The man returned the 2,000-year-old Roman ballista balls from Gamla and actually wrote a little note on it saying, quote, "These are 2 Roman ballista balls from Gamla, from a residential quarter of the foot of the summit. I stole them in July 1995, and since then, they have brought me nothing but trouble. Please do not steal antiques." You said it, buddy. Those stones have seen their fair share of bloodshed. You don't want any part of that smoke. And coming in at number 1, the Wailing Skull. Our number 1 spot, of course, the one that scares me the most. Skull banshees screaming throughout the middle of the night. Oh yeah, just screeching ghost heads. You know this is a thing, right? Like way more common than we think. Like they're like everywhere. Burton Agnes Hall is in East Yorkshire, was built in 1598 during the reign of Elizabeth I by 3 sisters of the Griffith family. The youngest sister, Anne, was apparently attacked. They beat her after she apparently refused to give them her belongings. Locals heard her cries and came to her rescue and returned her home, though sadly perishing 5 days later. On her deathbed, she requested that the head be placed within the walls of the unfinished manor. The family ignored her request, and after she was buried and the house's construction was complete, the sisters began to hear sinister noises throughout the empty house. Well, screams, actually. The sisters returned to their family's vault to fulfill the past sister's request, and when they opened the tomb, the body was completely intact except for the now smiling skull across the room from the body. Okay, the head was taken back to the Burton Agnes Hall, and miraculously, the noises and disturbances stopped. It's like she asked to be there or something. The noises would only happen again when later residents tried to remove the skull from the premises. Yeah, I'd put that back immediately. Don't mess with people's scary like this, you know? The skull was later cemented in the walls for safety. Yeah, I'd hope so. Although the noises have stopped, Anne still makes a ghostly appearance apparently on the anniversary of her death. I don't know why people go around touching things, moving them around, like leave them where they layeth, you know?
Coming in at number 5, we have the Myrtle's Plantation Mirror. Mirrors are said to connect the world of the living to the world of the dead, and this 200-year-old mirror is apparently doing just that. The 2013 horror film Oculus already ruined mirrors for me, but the Myrtle's Plantation Mirror just makes it worse. It's beautifully ornate and trimmed in gold, but you might catch a glimpse of something else or someone else staring back at you in it. Myrtle's Plantation is located in the Deep South, specifically Louisiana. The 18th century plantation is regarded as one of America's most haunted homes, although there could be a novel written about all of the ghostly legends set on the historic property. The most famous is that of the Mirror. According to local legend, a slave girl named Chloe baked a cake laced with poisonous ingredients for the prominent Woodruff family, killing 2 of the family members in the process. There's speculation on whether she meant to kill them or simply make them sick. The other slaves, scared they would get the blame, took justice into their own hands and hanged Chloe. Now her spirit roams the property. However, the people she killed are said to reside inside of the mirror. People have reported seeing apparitions dressed in old-fashioned clothing looking back at them. Strange drip marks also mysteriously appear running the length of the mirror. The property has no shortage of paranormal activity and has been the source of many convincing ghost pictures. Whether the mirror is responsible for the surge in supernatural happenings or not, I still wouldn't look into it without saying a prayer before. I just wouldn't look into it at all, to be honest.
Number 4, the Voynich Manuscript. As always, if you like what we do here at Top 5 Scary, make sure to hit that like button down below or comment down below which archaeological find you know of that has impending doom upon the discoverer. I love this stuff. It's scary beyond all belief, but it's interesting. We're all about it here. And speaking of, so apparently there's a giant Italian Renaissance-ish folio called the Voynich Manuscript. It's named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-Lithuanian book dealer who purchased it in 1912. Yeah, we don't really know what this thing is. One thing it most certainly is would be the most bizarre and mysterious book of all time. 100%. Not only is it detailed so carefully and patiently, it's all like Tim Burton-like, with an entire world drawn and recorded that isn't ours. Like, is this a parallel universe book? Is this language even known? Like, it's unknown, like predates Latin and doesn't even use phonetic patterns and coding. It's the riddle of all riddles. Written in the 15th century, somewhere they think between 1405 and 1450, all 240 pages are inscribed in some sort of indecipherable language, with a small alphabet only of about 170,000 characters. Yeah, it's gonna take a while for them to crack this one. The contents alone have cursed people mad, with obscure visions and obsessions for years. My precious. Historians and cartographers have tried to crack the code for hundreds of years, yet not one has been successful. Why wasn't this a national treasure movie? I feel like this would have been perfect. Was it written by people from another world? An unknown species? It's so familiar yet so alien. Radiocarbon dating from the University of Arizona proved for all pages tested that once started, the writing was continuous for like 20 years. Protein testing revealed that the parchment was actually skin. About 150 calves slain for this Goliath mystery. It remains at Yale, waiting to be decoded to this day. Creepy! Number 3, metal balls. So, metallic floating shiny balls have been recorded for years. Giant metallic balls like this have been found literally littered around the planet for decades, apparently. Ufologist and professor at Stanford, Gary Nolan, is currently studying these metal Malteser-looking things right now that people have collected and auctioned off since the 50s. Right now in Texas, there's a dude who has a ton of these apparent real alien tech. Jim Marlin, famous music producer, was given these metal giant pinball-looking spheres by a celebrity's bodyguard, apparently, who said that they were dropped from a craft in his backyard in the early 50s. And like, a lot of celebrities have touched these. Dennis Hopper, Jane Fonda, that's Hollywood people. These things are famous on their own. They also move on their own, and apparently hold power and light up once in a while on their own. Yeah. That's not scary at all. Hey dad, after Survivor, can you just move your metal giant floating balls out of the living room? Yeah, mom asked me to ask you. In the 70s, the Betts family of Florida came across a small metal sphere the size of a bowling ball in the woods behind their house. Their first thought was the sphere was an old cannonball from a battle. They decided to take the sphere home, and when the sphere seemed to react to the sound of music in the house, making a throbbing, pulsating noise, later the sphere was even seen rolling on its own and would even stop and change direction in the house. Yeah, that's terrifying. Even the Navy went there and checked out these giant mysterious metal orbs. Every time I'm on Reddit seeing these like light orbs trucking around the skies, I can't help but think, is that them? Like, that's them. One thing's for sure, they don't seem to be made here. Number 2, the Anticatherum Mechanism. The Anticatherum Mechanism is an anomaly on its own. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's basically an ancient computer that uses the cosmos to predict astronomical events. Thought to have been the first analog computer ever created, and no, it wasn't made in a garage in 1997 somewhere. It was invented by who knows who, like 2,000 years ago. Captain Dimitrios Kontos and his crew of sea sponge divers discovered the Antikythera shipwreck in early 1900 just off Antikythera in Greece, hence the name. I also find it hilarious that divers diving for something you wipe your butt with found an ancient computer. Like, something about that just amuses me. They recovered tons of artifacts during the expedition, helping pull up the shipwreck and this precious baby. Many thought it was cursed immediately after its first handlings. Apparently after its discovery, 3 of the divers who dove down died shortly after its find. Presumably, of course, of the bends, of overwork, but locals think this device was to blame. At 150 feet deep, just off Point Glyphadia, the Greek island, the team retrieved millions in bronze and marble statues, pottery, glassware, jewelry, coins, coins, and this ancient mechanism. It was a find of a century and still is. The device is made entirely out of a single bronze sheet, built in a wooden case about the size of a shoebox. The case and its faces are covered with Greek inscriptions, which indicate the device's astronomical and calendrical purpose. It's basically a computer built entirely out of cogs, wheels, gears, and faces, and it would tell you where you were amongst the cosmos. The first alarm clock, computer, calendar hybrid. Again, 2200 years ago. Like, no machinery, no watches, no laser cutters. Basically everything we have in our iPhones right now within a wooden box 2,000 years ago. Again, it's funny, they were collecting sea sponges to wipe our butts and then stumbled upon a computer. Yeah. You can find it at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. And number 1, the Codex Gigas. Obviously, this one's gonna be my number 1 pick. Apparently it translates to giant book, and it's big. It weighs about 170 pounds. Yeah, I'm kind of like really uncomfortable what I've learned and read about this book. It's the largest medieval manuscript in the world. The manuscript is also known as the Devil's Bible due to its highly unusual full-page portrait and detail of Satan and the legends surrounding its creation. Illuminated Bibles were a typical feature of Roman monastic books, but even with this one, the page size alone of the Gigas is notably larger for its time, and it's made out of about 180 donkeys. Yeah, sorry. Poor little guys. The most famous myth is that the scribe traded his soul to the Prince of Darkness himself so that he could complete the book in only one night. Everything within the book has been handwritten by a single anonymous person. Created in the early 13th century in the Benedictine monastery of Bohemia, now modern-day Czech Republic, this book holds demonic power. The manuscript contains the complete Bible, Old and New Testaments, as well as all medicinal and cosmological knowledge, all written in Latin, and predated glyphs. However, it is, unbeknownst to any of us, missing 10 pages. Yeah, just ripped out missing. It's like a movie right there. Apparently some think the Codex was created by Herman the Recluse in the Benedictine monastery in the Czech Republic before being stolen and taken to Prague by the Emperor Rudolf II, who, fun fact, also stole the Voynich Manuscript at one point. Yeah, this guy loved collecting like cursed, demonic, haunted scriptures, I guess. According to legend, the scribe was a monk who promised to create in one night a book to glorify the monastery forever, including all human knowledge. Near midnight, he became sure that he couldn't complete this task alone, so whipped out his pen and made a deal with Lucifer, asking him to help him finish the book in exchange for his soul. That's not really a good idea. It's thought it would have taken him at least 30 years non-stop writing to complete it. The book lays in the National Library of Sweden in Stockholm, where it is on display for the general public. Dude, I can't read Goosebumps without having nightmares, let alone going near this thing? Nah, I'm good. Number 5, the Ring of Sylvanas. The Vine Ring, aka the Ring of Sylvanas, is a gold ring dating back to the 4th century AD. The ring was discovered in the fields of a farm in 1785 in Hampshire, England. Originally the property of a British Roman named Sylvanus, apparently it was stolen by a person named Senicianus, upon which Sylvanus hexed the ring with a curse. That's right. In 1888, the owner of the property wrote about the ring in a history of his property, which is now a National Trust property. The ring went on display there in April 2013, where it's been ever since. Oddly, in 1929, during excavations of the site of the Roman Temple of Nodens at Lydney Park, archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler discovered the now apparent curse that goes with said ring. Consulting shortly after with one J.R.R. Tolkien. That's interesting. The ring is apparently much larger than most rings as well and was perhaps made to be worn over gloves. The band of the ring has 10 edges. Among it is the goddess Venus engraved, along with the saying, "Live in God." Yeah, that's pretty awesome. The lore goes, while at the temple, Sylvanus' gold ring vanished. Believing the thief to be an individual named Senicianus, Sylvanus demanded supernatural justice. And at the Temple of Nodens, crafted and carved a hexed tablet known as the Curse Tablet, or Defixio. On the tablet, he wrote, quote, "For the god Nodens, Sylvanus has lost a ring and has donated 1/2 of its worth to Nodens. Among those named Senicianus, permit no good health until it is returned to the Temple of Nodens." Yeah, that sounds like a spell to me. you better return that, buddy. Nodens is like Poseidon. Yeah, that's not good if he's out there looking for you.
In at number 4 we have Anna Baker wedding dress. Forbidden love, upper class versus lower class, a disapproving father. The story of Anna Baker could be a Shakespearean tragedy. Anna's wedding dress is a haunted relic reminiscent of what she lost, what she could never have, and what she could never let go of. Its purported hauntedness is more sad than scary. In 1849, the Baker family was one of high esteem in the small town of Altoona, Pennsylvania. As an upper class family, naturally the Bakers lived in a big beautiful mansion, one that still stands today and serves as a historical museum. Elias Baker was the patriarch of the family, and he ruled with an iron fist, literally. Their fortune was made through ironworking, with Elias serving as an iron master. His daughter Anna, who much to his dismay fell in love with a poor steel worker. With an obsession for wealth and social classes, Elias forbade his daughter from seeing the man she loved. Their short-lived romance ended abruptly, and Anna never got to wear her beloved wedding dress. Bitter and broken-hearted, Anna locked herself away and refused to ever marry. Town branded her as crazy because of her antisocial behavior, and the maids would often catch her dancing around the Baker mansion in her unused wedding dress. Legends say that once her father died, she visited the only man she ever loved and found him happily settled down with another woman. Anna died lonely, broken-hearted, and angry at her father. Today, her wedding dress is put away to properly preserve the historical garment, but it used to rest behind a case in the Baker Mansion Museum. There were many reports of the glass case violently shaking as if someone was trying to get at the dress inside. Anna's wedding dress would also move on its own, seemingly swaying along with the ghost inhabiting it. Anger and sadness is said to have manifested in Anna Baker's wedding dress, making it an extremely haunted item. Coming in at number 3 we have Peggy the Doll. Warning, just looking at pictures or videos of this haunted doll can apparently make you violently ill. So if you have to say your prayers before even looking at her, I would recommend steering clear from this doll. Or say a prayer right now because I'm sure the editor's going to show a picture. Peggy the Doll may look cute with her wide eyes and Doris Day haircut, but she's inhabited by an evil and impish spirit. UK-based paranormal investigator Jane Harris used to own her and says that she received a plethora of messages from people claiming to have gotten seriously sick after watching a video of her doll. Reports include chest pains, nausea, crippling headaches, and general anxiety. One woman even claimed to have suffered a heart attack. Peggy the Doll can do more than just make you sick, however. People claim to experience paranormal activity in their own homes after just looking at the doll online. One woman told Jane that after opening a picture of Peggy, her computer froze and she felt a strong presence in her room. Another lady said light bulbs in her home blew after simply mentioning the haunted doll's name. Oh, I've said her name many times. Come for me, Peggy. The previous owner of Peggy also reported a series of strange occurrences. She was experiencing terrifying nightmares and eventually fell extremely ill with a fever. After recovering, she sent the doll packing into the hands of Jane, who had similar experiences. 4 separate mediums have said a restless and frustrated spirit lives within the doll. It's also believed to be the spirit of a woman from 1946 who died of a chest-related condition. Who is actually inhabiting her is unknown, but the spirit is thought to be evil. Peggy the Doll now resides in Zach Bagan's Haunted Museum, where she continues to haunt the living. In at number 2 we have Thomas Busby's stoop chair. Known as the dead man's chair, this supposedly haunted oak chair is said to be cursed by a murderer, so say your prayers before taking a seat. Plagued by the 300-year-old curse, this chair is now displayed in the UK with its legs off the ground so no one can sit in it. In 1702, Thomas Busby brutally murdered his father-in-law. Some say he was strangled and the others say he was bludgeoned. According to local legend, his father-in-law provoked him by sitting in his chair without permission, and chaos ensued. In a fit of rage, Busby killed the man and was convicted for the murder. His punishment was death by hanging, but he was granted a final request to have a stiff drink in his chair one last time. Minutes before his execution, it said that Thomas Busby cursed his chair, saying, "Death shall come swiftly to anyone that dares to sit in my chair," and it seems like he kept his promise. Over the next couple centuries, many people fell victim to the apparent hex. A chimney sweeper died after resting in it. Whether he took his own life or fell off the roof while working is unknown. Another man was found dead after sitting in it due to a mysterious accident. There are also stories of soldiers from World War II who dared to take a seat and they never returned home. Because of the long list of incidents with Busby's death chair, it was donated to a museum and will hopefully never touch the floor ever again. And finally, in at number 1 we have the hands resist them. There's just something so spooky and unnerving about this terrifying piece of art by Bill Stoneham. Perhaps it's the boy's hollow eyes, or the lifeless doll, or even the disembodied children's hands. Either way, what's most disturbing is what happens to those brave enough to come in contact with it. So if you don't want to suffer the same fate, maybe say a prayer or two first. Painted in 1972, Bill Stoneham based the piece of art on an old photograph of himself from when he was 5. Little did he know his work would go on to be one of the most famous cursed paintings in history. The hands resist them gained notoriety after the 3 closest men to the painting died. Stoneham turned the painting over to Charles Feingarten for his art gallery in 1974, where it was purchased by actor John Marley, most famous for his role as the movie producer in The Godfather, who wakes up next to the severed head of his prized horse in his bed. His first media mention was by art critic Henry Seldis. By 1984, all 3 of these men were dead. The piece of art disappeared for years after this, but it resurfaced on eBay in 2000, and the posting was chilling to say the least. The seller claimed that the painting was haunted and that their children were being tormented by it. The kids said that they would see the boy and the doll in the painting fight and would be visited by them in the room at night. The dad was skeptical, of course, until he set up a camera and saw the boy crawl from the painting. He quickly listed it on eBay with a disclaimer, and it became an internet sensation. People began having paranormal experiences just by looking at the listing, hearing voices in their homes, and becoming very ill.